Club. Paul is the president. He'd normally be here, but he's in England. He had to visit with his sister over there at a situation. So anyway, I told him I'd do this presentation, okay, which is Ultimate Power for the Robeson Resident. And so what I'm going to talk about tonight is what I personally experienced. So before we start, does anybody have a Generac backup generator? Okay, Rick does. Anybody else in here? Does anybody have a solar panel in the house? Okay, all right, so we'll talk in terms of what I experienced. You might have a different experience with it, but we'll get started. So our agenda, yes?
So you have both Generac and solar?
We're going to talk about that.
Okay, I just didn't- sorry to mean to steal your thunder.
Wait, hold your horses. Okay, so we're going to start out with 3 questions that I had going after it and why I did it. Okay, backup generator or solar panels, or love the one you're with that was bought by my wife as a gift to me. Okay, over here. And then we're going to talk about Generac. We're going to talk about the roof solar panel, and then I call it the portable battery solar panel over here. And then we'll wrap up. If you got any questions, just hold up your hands, okay? So we'll get started. So, the 3 questions I had is, why? Why would I do this? Well, I had a bill from CoServe of $540 last month. Outrageous. And so, we have 2 units on the outside, that cool the house. One of them went down, so we'll probably pick up a little more efficiency there. But I've done everything in that home I can do to make it efficient. We foam the ceilings, we have the Nest thermostats, but my wife likes it real cool at night, and that's a huge problem. But she likes it that way, and there's just not much else I can do. Plus, we have a lot of electronics in the house that are just, I call them vampire devices. They're always on, you know what I mean? They're always on, okay? So the why is, I thought, well, what could I do? So the why. What was my budget? Well, I didn't really know what the budget would be because I didn't know what these things would cost. I went out there. Now the Generac was just because, we had the snow Armageddon last year and we know what we went through. But that was a rolling thing, So, refrigerators and freezers, they were really affected. But I don't trust the grid out here. I don't think the state of Texas has done enough to keep it up, but we'll see. We'll see. It's kept, they've kept it up so far through the summer. All right, and then usability. Okay, what's the usability on these things? So, all right, Generac home generator, and there's a video to watch. Mr. Cameraman, can you get the lights, please?
Power outages are unpredictable, and no matter what the cause, they can leave your family in the dark for an extended period of time, leaving you without access to air conditioning, heat, refrigeration, and the ability to communicate with friends and loved ones. But when you have a Generac automatic home standby generator, you and your family stay safe and comfortable until utility power returns. Given our reliance on electronic devices, home standby generators are a powerful necessity in today's modern home. And Generac has been the leading name in home standby generators for almost 40 years. Here's how an automatic home standby generator works. When the power goes off, the generator turns on automatically, and within seconds, your home and critical appliances are powered. Home standby generators connect directly to your existing LP or natural gas fuel supply, bringing added dependability when disaster strikes. Generac's purpose-built G-Force engine is at the core of Generac generators. Engineered and designed specifically for the rigors of generator use, the G-Force engine provides reliable power and requires less routine maintenance than competitive engines. And Generac's True Power technology delivers best-in-class power with less than 5% total harmonic distortion, which means your generator can safely run even the most sensitive electronics. The Quiet Test self-test mode performs a weekly test at low RPMs, giving you the comfort of knowing your generator is ready to power up at any moment. Through ingenuity, Generac's automatic home standby generators are now the easiest standby generators to install, which saves you time and money during the installation process. When you're away, Generac's remote monitoring system, MobileLink, lets you check your generator's status from your smartphone, tablet, or computer from anywhere in the world. MobileLink pulls operational details from your generator, such as the operating status, maintenance reminders, and scheduling of the unit's weekly tests. Best of all, MobileLink allows you to connect your account to an authorized Generac dealer who can spot issues in advance and ensure your generator continues to run smoothly. Generac generators are engineered and built right here in the U.S. with powder-coated aluminum enclosures. These generators can withstand any weather condition. Generac generators come with a 5-year limited warranty and are backed by 24/7, 365 customer support. And with more than 5,000 dealers nationwide, getting one installed is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Get the ultimate peace of mind with power you control with a Generac automatic standby generator. Power outages are unpredictable, and no matter what the cause, they can leave your family in the
Okay, Generac, my experience. So, I thought about this and I thought, well, it looks like a pretty nice device. All right, so we contacted through the web, Generac, and they had a sales rep do a Zoom meeting with. Nobody comes out to your house anymore. I don't know if y'all have experienced that. No one wants to come. They all want to do Zoom things and whatever. So, wanted to what one? Well, I thought it'd be cool to have a backup in case something did happen, whole house, and I don't have to worry about anything. So, how much? Well, they wanted $16,000 to do it. And I go, whoa, that's a lot of money. And I go, And so, at that point, I really went, and did I install? No, I didn't. Okay, it's just too much money. And so, so what I did was I said, well, it's like going to Vegas. You're just going to throw the dice and hope that we don't have anything sustained, in a outage like that. But we have somebody here, Rick DuBois, who did put one in. Rick, come on up.
I did put one.
Well, come on up.
Okay, so,
Wait, come on. You gotta have the map so they can hear you. Or I'll get it on the recording.
Okay, so I did do a Generac. It's a 22 kilowatt unit, which is enough to power a Robson Ranch house, most of it. So here, this is how it really works. So, what are you doing here?
You wanna be in the camera?
I don't want to be in the camera. Well, that's fine. All right, so here's how it really works. So, we call a Generac dealer, we never could get them to even call us back. So I bought one from Lowe's, it was about $6,200. That included, there's a big transfer switch that comes with it and the transfer switch is what switches the power from the generator to your house versus the power from the electricity to your house. So it's an automatic system that when the generator notices that the power goes off, it immediately starts itself up and then begins powering the house by switching this switch over to it rather than home power. So if you wanted to test it, you could just go throw all the circuit breakers and the thing would start up. So that was about $6,200. Then we had an electrician come out to put the thing in. The things that they don't tell you exactly is this thing weighs about 500 pounds. So the guys from Lowe's brought it out and I said, where are you gonna put this? We're gonna put it in your driveway. And I said, could you put it by the side of the house? No, we're not doing that. I said, how come? And they said, it's too heavy. And I said, how much would it cost you to put it on the side of the house? We're not doing that. And I said, I'm not gonna be able to move this. And finally, eventually it was $100 per guy to move it from the driveway to the side of the house. You do have to have a concrete pad, so they slogged it over to the side of the house. The generators, all of them come on these big wooden pallets that they're basically screwed down to with bolts, which you can't get off. So when the guy came to install the generator, we had to figure out a way for him to actually lift the generator up and get it off the pallet, which required a backhoe and some straps to lift the thing up and get the pallet off. You also have to have a place to put it, so you need a larger pad, which we put in, and you also need a larger gas piping system in order to get enough gas to the generator. So a standard hose from a regular, gas meter is not big enough. So it would have to be piped for that. And then you would also need a bigger gas meter, which doesn't cost anything, by the way, but it is bigger, and they have to come out and do it and service it, and also check it and make sure it's okay, and inspect it, and all that kind of stuff. So all of the hookup was about $2,900 for the electrician, the pad, the guy to change the gas, to do all that stuff. But it does work. It's louder than I expected it to be. It is computerized. You have an app. It has, you can make it run on its own. So you do what's called an exercise. So I exercise it for about 15 minutes once a week at 9 o'clock on Mondays. You can do that. You can start it from wherever you want to and see what it's doing. But it puts out a good amount of power. It puts out 22,000 watts, which is about a little over 100 amps, which would not run everything in a house. In one of our houses, including all the air conditioners, but it would run one air conditioner and everything else. It probably wouldn't run an air conditioner and a dryer and a microwave and all that other stuff, but it would certainly get you through. So one thing I didn't do until tonight was figure out how much it actually would cost to run the thing. And I did some calculations with the electrician. If the thing was running at full power, it would probably be about $100 or $150 a day. If it was at full power, in other words, 100 to 200 amps. You wouldn't have to run it with that much power consumption, so you could control it depending on what you ran it on, so you could get it down substantially lower than that, but that's kind of the story.
Who did you use for electrical installation?
So a guy who works around here, Trevor Hopkins, is a local guy that does stuff on the side. And I mean, I think it was gonna be around $15,000 or $20,000 from Super Center, the Super Center place. I couldn't get him to call me back anyway, and they said, well, it's gonna be 4 months before you can get one. I was able to order it on the Lowe's website and have it in a couple weeks, so.
Trevor is a general contractor, so he's
Right.
able to reach out to plumbers, electricians,
Yeah.
get all the permits. There's a lot of permitting going on with this thing
Yeah.
too.
So anyway, so it does work.
So your total cost was about $9,100?
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say 10,000 by the time you do the concrete, and there are portable pads. You don't have to do a concrete pad. They sell these generator pads that you can buy, and they can install those if you don't wanna do the concrete, but the concrete's not that much compared to everything else.
How much did you say it cost to run it?
So I was calculating, I called the electrician, I said, I have to give this little talk, how much does this thing actually cost to run? And he said, well, if you were running everything, 100 amps, which would be both air conditioners, and the washer and dryer would probably be about $100 or $150 a day.
But no kiln.
No kiln. Smart aleck. Hey, I put in another electric switch today, didn't catch it, nothing caught fire. That's another story. Anyway,
Now, you said they had to replace your gas meter?
Yeah.
they're going to, because it needs a
Okay.
higher flow.
Okay, because neighbor behind me put one in, and I haven't seen them change the gas
Yeah,
meter.
and I don't know that you have to do that, but if there was a big draw, my understanding is that the piping and the meter would not keep up with the draw for the generator at full power, so.
That one can be played a couple of different ways. Again, different meter, but jack up the pressure coming through the meter into the house, and then putting step-down regulators for the HVAC,
Right.
stove, and so forth. So there's a couple of ways you can play that particular game. Our neighbor put in a 24 kW and went to Lowe's and got Lowe's to put it in. So I have no idea, it's whichever contractor they did. total installed cost, he told me, is about 12 grand compared to the 16, 17 grand going through Super Center.
Right.
So,
Where'd you get the backhoe?
Oh, so we're putting in a swimming pool. It was a Saturday, so the electrician brought over his father-in-law, his son, a whole bunch of people, and they were all standing out there, and the guys are there with the backhoe, and he says, how much would you charge to use the backhoe? So for like $200, they put these straps around it and lifted it up and got it off there, but that was just luck. So,
What was your driving decision to procure this and to implement this backup generator capacity in your home?
my wife. She really wanted one because she heard about, the electric grids going out. We're putting a pool in. The pool guy said, well, if it's wintertime, the electricity goes all out and your pumps all go off and all your pool pipes freeze, that could cost you a whole bunch of money. And she just bugged me until we decided to do it, which is the truth. I mean, it sounds like a good idea. It was a lot of trouble, but it does work. And it's there.
And that $100 you talked about per day, that's natural gas charges, I assume?
That's the natural gas charges, depending on what the gas is going for.
When Snowmageddon hit my neighborhood, and my sister-in-law lived half a mile away here at Robeson Ranch, no power and no natural gas went off at her house. Both went off at mine.
Yep.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you could lose natural gas too, and then you're basically just screwed, but, it's better than nothing, I guess.
Well, on the west side, we were losing natural gas for a while. When the power would come back on, everybody's furnace would fire up, and the gas pressure would go down, and the furnace would shut down from low pressure. I don't know how that. I guess that would temporarily
It's not
impact
gonna
us.
be, it's not gonna be good for it, I can tell you that.
Yeah.
So, but anyway,
Yeah.
I mean, nothing's perfect. So, anyway, that's my history, so.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rick.
Steve?
Steve,
Yes.
couple of points. We had a backup generator up in Ohio when Hurricane Ike came through Galveston and ran right up the Ohio Valley, and we were without power for about a week. And we decided to put in a backup generator. Our total cost up there, this is about 8 years ago, was about $6,800. So things have changed quite a bit. But the transfer switch is an absolutely critical component. During Ike up there, we lost a couple of power linemen who got electrocuted because people had illegally hooked up generators to their house without cutting off from the grid. Transformers work both ways. They're not a one-way street. And that voltage ran right up the line and killed the lineman, not too far from our house. So the transfer switch is absolutely
Actually,
critical.
let me throw something in. That was one of the big issues with CoServe. It was like this big deal when they pulled the box for the electricity. I guess CoServe immediately knows you're trying to steal power, and they will do all kinds of stuff and send people out. So we had to call and make an appointment to tell them that we're going to turn the power off when they actually hooked it up. So
Yeah.
I forgot about that part, but it's kind of a big deal.
Yeah, there are problems with that, but as I recall, that transfer switch up in Ohio cost me about 75% of the cost of the generator. So it's a non-trivial item. We had a generator up there for 6 years before we moved. Sold the house. The generator was a nice selling feature on the house, and about a year later, the guy that bought the house called me and said the generator's dead. So I told him who installed it, and I offered you a home house warranty and you turned it down, so, TS, But he called me back a while later, and the generator service people said it was completely dead and they couldn't do anything with it. So that was about a 7.5-year life on that unit, so. I want to echo the comment about the low gas pressure, because that was a real major problem, and a natural gas powered generator wouldn't help you in those circumstances at all. So We've beat it around down here and talked about it. I told her I'm not gonna live long enough to make that decision.
Good answer.
So, I've got a question about the natural gas. Not, come from high rises in Chicago, so I'm not used to the gas. Is there any part of the grid, or the delivery to the house of natural gas is dependent upon the grid?
Yes.
So if the grid goes out, you're not getting natural gas anyway?
No.
There's pumping systems at the wellhead for the natural gas. And what happened during Snowmageddon was those wellheads froze up because they cut off the auxiliary power to them. So they screwed up, and that's what hurt the gas supply. And I think they fixed that. Hopefully we won't test it and find out, but I think they fixed that.
Let me ask that question a little bit differently though. We didn't lose the grid. We just had rolling brownouts. If we lost the entire grid, will we eventually lose our natural gas supply as well because of the lack of compression?
No,
No?
no, I'm oil and gas.
That's why I'm asking the question.
Yeah.
We just say no.
Gee, the compressor just north.
My house, I see the one over my house, I can see
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, it's, natural gas powered, it's not electric powered, so it's not on the grid, it rolls and it pumps it into the grid. What ended up happening, you've heard of IoT, or IIoT. The safety valves on the inlet to the natural gas generating plants were hooked up through the internet. Somebody didn't follow the protocol, shut off the power to the ISPs, down went the valves, shut off the power to the generating plants.
They have redundancy without the internet.
Yeah, so that was a major part of that particular problem. But as far as natural gas is concerned, you're right. If something does freeze up at the wellhead, yeah, you're kind of SOL there. But the generators are 99% natural gas driven generators at the wellheads. They feed about 1,000 pounds into the gas distribution system across Texas and the United States, so it's running at about 1,000 pounds. And then of course it feeds into the city gate, and the city drops the pressure down and distributes through the city. So, you're pretty, knock on wood, well assured of getting a natural gas in there, but things can happen.
Right.
So.
But it's not dependent on the grid. That was the key question I think a lot of people have.
Which grid? The electrical grid?
The electrical grid.
The-
I'm thinking on the electrical grid.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't have to worry about the gas going down because the grid goes down. In most cases, there could be something that happens, and just from your experience, hey, you happen to be on a leg out there, at the end of a leg, and stuff can happen. So,
We found that out.
yeah.
Okay, we'll move on. Roof solar panels. This is an older video.
Yeah, Steve, let's see where we, down there, okay,
You okay?
yeah.
Alright. So we'll play this. Some of it kind of makes sense, and then I'll talk about my experience with the solar panels as such, alright? Thank you, Dick. Thank you, Rick. Come on.
In Tesla's Q2 earnings call, Elon Musk dropped this little bombshell.
Our solar is now 30% cheaper than the US average. After the federal tax credit, Tesla solar now costs $1.49 per watt.
I haven't seen this spoken about much online, but it's a pretty big deal. Why? Well, let's get into it. I'm Matt Farrell. Welcome to Undecided. There were several things that came up during Tesla's Q2 earnings call that really piqued my interest. And what they brought up about Tesla's energy solar panel cost is just one of them. Now, I'm planning on diving into other points from that call in future videos, so be sure to subscribe if you don't want to miss those. Back to the cost of solar. In the United States, depending on where you live, the average cost of getting solar ranges between $2.51 and $3.31 per watt before the federal tax credit incentive. So an average size installation would cost you between $15,000 and $20,000 before incentives. or between $11,000 and $15,000 after the incentives. Now, when I got my solar panels installed in 2018, it cost me $3.12 per watt before any kind of solar incentives. Now, after incentives, it was about $2.18 per watt, including the federal and local incentives. So when Elon said the following, it really caught my attention.
We recently adjusted the pricing of our retrofit solar. So Tesla Solar is the lowest cost solar in the United States. And we added a lowest cost guarantee and a money back guarantee. So we're very confident that people will love our solar product, whether it's the solar retrofit or solar roof. Our solar is now 30% cheaper than the US average. After the federal tax credit, Tesla Solar now costs $1.49 per watt.
If we follow Elon's math, he's setting a national average cost per watt of about $2.88, which is right in that $2.51 to $3.31 range I mentioned earlier. Now, before incentives, that means Tesla Solar is right around $2, or $2.01 to be precise. Now, to get down to $1.49 per watt after incentives is kind of mind-blowing for the US market, which has been notoriously expensive compared to other countries around the world. And speaking of around the world, I've heard from a lot of viewers in Australia questioning the crazy price that I paid for my system compared to what they're paying. And it is kind of crazy how big the price gap is. In Australia right now, it's not unheard of to have a price below $1 per watt, which raises the question, why is it so much cheaper in Australia? Or to pose it in the inverse, why is it so much more expensive here in the US? There's actually a lot we can learn from Australia on this topic, especially when it comes to soft costs of installation, which refers to the non-component costs of the system, like permits and inspections. These can have a profound impact on final costs. In fact, they can often add up to about $1 per watt for every installation. That's one of the ways Australia drove down the prices. They simplified permitting requirements and hired dedicated inspectors. Now, meanwhile, here in the US, permitting requirements vary not only by state, but often by local jurisdictions within states. And instead of having dedicated solar inspectors, we're lumping that into the realm of home inspectors in general. Those are just some of the reasons why we see such wild variation in per watt pricing across the US. One of the ways that Tesla achieved these incredible industry-leading prices is by reducing those soft costs. They've simplified the sales and installation process. Instead of having a huge sales force that adds to the per watt fees, it's all done online through a simple web form. I ran through this process to see what a system would cost me today, and it's impressive. Tesla has pre-configured system sizes, kind of like small, medium, large, and extra large sizing. It's another way to keep those prices down. So I wasn't able to configure a one-to-one match with my current 9.49 kilowatt system, but I was able to configure an 8.16 kilowatt system, which is their medium size, and it costs $16,400 up front. There's that $2.01 per watt pricing that I mentioned before. And if you account for the incentives in my area and the federal solar tax credit that's still available, I'll be able to get about $5,264 back for the final cost of $11,136. That makes for an even better price per watt than what Elon said on the Q2 call. It's just $1.36 per watt. And in my area, there's something called the Smart Solar Incentive, which is a series of payouts for my electric utility, Eversource. Now, over the course of 10 years, it would add up to about $2,852 cash back. And if you take that into account as part of this, you're then talking about a system that would cost me $8,284, or about $1.02 per watt. Much lower than the actual $2.18 I paid for my current system in 2018. Now, I don't have regrets. I'm glad I didn't wait, but that's a pretty sizable difference and not so far off from Australia anymore for cost. In Tesla's Q3 earnings call from last year, they actually spoke about this streamlined permitting and installation process.
On solar, we've also simplified the fulfillment process with a goal of really fast order to install timelines. We've done many residential installs with a single visit to a customer's home because of standard sizes that reduce complexity. We've also been working with cities and counties to submit generic permits that follow a template rather than customizing for every situation.
This is a really big deal. By working with cities and counties like that to reduce complex paperwork, which in some circumstances is multiple forms and pages of documents, they're reducing the overhead. It's making something that could take days to fill out and process and boils it down to a single generic form that makes for faster approval. Or as Elon put it,
We've pioneered a novel approach. It's an innovation applied to bureaucracy, frankly.
This type of innovation might not be as exciting and visceral as a Model S in launch mode, but it's just as game-changing as what Tesla has done with their electric vehicles. They're rethinking the whole way the solar market has worked historically here in the US. It's helping to push the prices down to a point that will make it more feasible to more areas of the country, even without incentives. And Tesla Energy is also providing energy storage to help manage the load that renewables put onto the grid or your home. Solar and wind don't always generate electricity at the times that you need it most, so we need to be able to store it. Most headlines that involve Tesla are about their cars, and most analysts seem laser focused on the car side of the business without taking the energy side into account in the same way. Elon's said numerous times that he thinks the energy side of the business is going to be big, maybe even bigger than the car side.
I can't emphasize enough. I think long-term Tesla Energy will be roughly the same size as Tesla Automotive. I mean, the energy business collectively is bigger than the automotive business. So you say, like, you know, how big is the energy sector? Bigger than automotive.
To that point, Tesla just won a major project for 800 megawatt hours of Megapacks for Switch in Nevada. It's one of the largest of its size. And last month, they announced a project in California for a 400 megawatt hour battery system. NRG Energy switched from installing a gas-fired peaker plant, which only runs when demand is high, to installing a solar panel system with energy storage. And then there's the AutoBidder software platform, which Tesla can layer onto any energy storage system like these to add even more value. In the UK, Photowatio Renewable Ventures and Harmony Energy are installing a 15 megawatt hour Megapack system that will offset peak demand on the UK national grid. It's going to be using AutoBidder to automate how the system stores and sells energy. And getting into AutoBidder might be a whole video by itself, but it basically takes wholesale energy market pricing, energy use, renewable generation, pretty much any assets the utility wants and needs to track to determine how to best utilize the battery storage system on the fly. Now, it can save massive amounts of money for the utility, and you only have to look at the success of the Hornsdale Power Reserve to see exactly how beneficial it can be. It costs around $50 million to build, but reduced the cost of frequency-controlled ancillary services by about $116 million in 2019 alone. So Tesla Energy is successfully driving down per-watt pricing for solar, which will help it get more traction in the market. More people will be able to afford solar and see a return on investment faster. And I haven't even mentioned Tesla Solar Roof, which offers an even better value for the dollar if you need to replace your roof at the same time as adding solar. They're closing more and more deals on Megapacks to help utilities balance power demands and take advantage of increased renewables on the grid. Tesla Energy has been very quiet over the past few years, slowly reworking itself in the background as its flashier sibling basks in the limelight. But it's starting to look like Tesla Energy is standing up and demanding some attention now. And that's pretty exciting. Not just for Tesla, but for the broader solar energy market too. So what's your take? Jump into the comments and let me know what you think about Tesla's plans for the energy side of the business. And as always, a special thank you to all of my patrons. All of your support is really helping to make this possible. If you like this video, be sure to check out the other ones I have linked to right here. And in Tesla's Q2 earnings call, Elon Musk.
Steve, you said that video was older. How old is it?
Maybe a year and a half as such. I couldn't really find a lot that would help us out. I was looking for a Tesla video, but they don't really have. Couldn't find a Tesla video out there anymore, so. Yeah,
When they're coming up with this $1.50 per kilowatt hour and this type of thing, what time period are they amortizing the cost of this stuff over? And that has everything to do with it.
I don't know. Let me tell you about my experience and then you see what I went through. So, first of all, what will Cursor do or not do? Right? Here's the FAQ for solar. I'll get to it. And, you know, this is an eye chart, but basically there is a link here in the presentation. By the way, if you are a member of our group, what we do is we make this available as a recording as well as a slideshow. So if you'd like to join, I just need your email, okay? And say I wanna join, and then you'll get an invitation through, our groups. We have no membership dues, so, just FYI. So anyway, I read through this, and basically what they're saying here is that they only want you to buy enough panels for the lowest use month. So you're using CoServe and the panels, because if you generate more energy, okay, than your bill, they'll say thank you and give you nothing, no credits, nothing. So when the guy from Freedom Power came out, now let's get out of here. Oh, come on. Back over here. No, it's not it.
Close that tab.
Yeah, you're right, you're right.
Right there.
Yep. Okay. Come on. All right. So what I did is I went out and, lost it.
Did you change your slide down there? Right there?
Yeah. So what I did is I went out and, I was like, why did I want one? Well, we talked to solar people about 6 years ago, and it was just outrageously expensive. So I thought, well, let's go see how much it is and see what their deal is. So Freedom Power was someone that we knew a friend out here that had bought the panels from them, and they were very happy. So what we did is went out there, and again, it's that they don't want to come to your house. They want to do a Zoom call, all right? And then they sent me this real elaborate, fancy PDF with all of the numbers and everything in it. And I go, wow, that's pretty fancy. But ended up being this. They wanted me to buy 151 panels for my house to cover the usage for the highest month. They never told me what CoServe, would do or wouldn't do, or what the feds would do or wouldn't do, which I thought was pretty bad. CoServe recommended them on their website, and so the cash price was $63,000. Bam! Now I would save $150 a month at the highest usage. At the highest usage. How long would that take to pay? That's the cash price. All right. The finance part would be $71,000. I go, no way. First I told him I didn't care what it cost totally. I just want to save money. But then, God told me, don't do that. That's stupid money. You don't know. I guess I could have gone half the panels. I think the CoServe recommended, but where am I going with that? Am I really saving anything? I don't think so. I think the drawback for me is when I saw that they wouldn't help me with the panels. They wouldn't give me credits. Now, you go over to Denton and they will. They'll give you credits to pay your water bill. They get it. CoServe does. Anyway, why do people do it? I have no clue. Maybe they like shiny things. That's all I can say. All right, did it install? No way. Okay, no way. All right, so what did I end up with? Love the one you're with. My wife had bought this. It's called a Generac. They put a K on the end of it, and so you got a battery here. I think it's I don't remember any watts, 10,000 watts or something. It's a lot of power, and I left it on for 3 weeks, and it's still 100%. It just never drains out. Okay, and then you have this panel that you can up to. Paul, what we did is finally I said, Paul, come over. my wife has been on me for months to make sure this gift, that I knew how to use it and get it set up in case we have a problem. And so we worked and worked and worked and worked, and we're still working on it. Cable wasn't right, or another cable, and then we figured out, and then the last thing we had was the polarity was changed on the cable versus the battery. And so the panel wasn't putting any feed into the battery, so Paul was gonna make an adjustment on that before he left. Hopefully we'll do that when he gets back. But it's just too much money, all right? Way too much money. So, anyway, this is on.
This is my Generac
unit
Home 1
here.
solar charging setup. I have a 200 watt solar panel in the background connected in parallel. So they are 100 watts each. And I'm gonna charge my scooter, MacBook, and the DeWalt 6 amp battery at the same time using its AC power output. There are 3 AC outlets, but I'm only using 2 at this time. And the USB has 2 USB Type-C outputs, which is connected to the MacBook Pro. However, this thing is not 60 watts output, it's like 18 watts from these 2 USB-C. So I would highly recommend you guys get a car charger like this and put it into the 12 volt adapter. Therefore you get probably get a 65 watts output. And of course, each section is controlled by one button press, and that's the display of the output and the input. I'm only getting 22 watts right now because it's really cloudy right now. I was able to max out 200 watts when it was a sunny day. So this scooter has a massive battery pack down there and is pulling a lot of power. Let me disconnect the DeWalt charger for now. As you can see, it's draining 141 watts of power to the scooter by adding the DeWalt charger. Actually, it is a combined output of the DC and AC power. Okay, so that's 333 watts from the DeWalt charger and to the battery of the scooter. And the solar input is a Anderson port, which is pretty standard among battery banks and solar charging setups. So that's how you plug it in, like this. And that's the round adapter is wall charger, or if you want to use one single solar panel, you can do this as well. So that's one panel setup, 100 watts. It also features a nice handle. The total capacity of the battery bank is 1,000 watt hour. And there's nothing on this side. Let me show you a few more details over here. Additionally, plugging in a USB device. There are lots of ports over here with QC3 compatible chargers. And the power output will increase. This is a massive 20,000 milliamps battery bank. Yeah. And the total output is 1,000 watts. As long as we don't exceed that, that's fine. And for solar panels, there is a pocket in the back. And these ports has 18 watts output. That's a Type-C and USB Type-A. I believe these are shared. So you can directly use this solar panel with the USB devices. And it has a kickstand in the back. It can be easily folded like this in a briefcase design. And here's the tip, always pointing the panels directly at the sun and don't use them indoor. Therefore you have maximum efficiency. You have magnetics here, so when they are closed, they will stay closed. As you can see, these two cables are joined together, connected in parallel by this adapter from Generac. It is also part of the product. Yeah, nice handle. It's not too heavy. Yeah, it's a great solution for off-the-grid living, emergency power backup, and work off the grid. With these two panels, you should be able to handle a lot of smaller electronics, or even power your DC fridge from this port, and charge power tools. You should be able to handle a circular saw, a quarter circular saw as well, and I'm not even maxing out at a total 1,000 watts. All right. Yeah, thank you very much for watching. Really appreciate the support. Thank you.
So I stand corrected, that's 1,000 watts, not 10,000. All right, that's a little too much, but, my wife had bought this, she paid $1,500 for the battery pack and a solar panel that doesn't have a kickstand or anything like that. You buy them now, still the same price, but they've got them with the kickstands, and they call them briefcase. So pretty nice design they have, but you know, love them when we're wood. So why I want one? Hey, it was already there and paid for. You know, I don't have $73,000 over my head. All right, and it would be an emergency thing. So should we need to power something like a freezer and the power had been out for a day or two, then we could do that. Or, you know, she needed in the house for maybe her sleep apnea device or whatever. We can take it in there and hook it up and away we go. So it would come in handy for that if we wanted to stay in the house. I told her, hey, we'll just go over and get with the Du Boises, all right? Yeah, so anyway, how much? $1,500 she paid for it. It was a gift, and a nice gift, and you know, hopefully we won't have to use it, but if we do, you know, I know how it works. And did I install? I didn't install the panel on the roof. I think that's really what it's made for, is to go on the roof, but that's just a little too much for me. I got so much stuff up there right now. But so I have a little bag that I keep it in and keep it in the garage, and I can slip it all out pretty quickly if I need. All right, questions?
Yep. What is the amount of power does a refrigerator freezer combination pull down?
Well, that's a good question, and honestly, I don't know. I think the unit would tell me once I plugged it into it how much it's drawing.
So you haven't tried anything like that at this point?
No, not yet. Okay. We're still trying to get the panel to feed the power to the unit, but yeah.
I think the refrigerators are only double digits.
They're only double digits? Yeah, so I was trying to figure out, that would be to me the number one. Air conditioning, heating, I can deal without. Can cover up or burn up for a while, but losing all your food, all your steaks and things you have in your freezers is a lot more expensive proposition.
DC motors though, is they do a very large draw when they first start.
Yeah.
And
Starting surge kills
you
it.
wonder if that's
Yeah.
kind of what that would do with them.
Yeah.
That's
That's
the
the
kicker.
question, yeah.
Yes, sir.
I have a 1,500 watt one, I mean, that's 1,000 of a 1,500 watt one that I actually hooked up to my freezer to test. Because, you know, when the power went off, that's what I wanna keep, cause I had the whole freezer go bad.
Yeah.
And, I just hooked it up out there and I didn't try, you know, to play with it. I just said, I'm gonna sit here until this thing turns on, and it worked fine. In fact, it looked like it could probably run it for 3 days.
Wow.
Without any sun, without any solar.
Yeah, without any solar. So, the freezer, it's a blue freezer. I just bought it last year, so I'm sure it's the most energy efficient one you can get, cause I have an old one too. It's, I wanna say older than I am, but it's probably about 15 years old. And I did not hook it up yet to test it, cause I know it's inefficient, it looks cold really bad. So, but if you have a reasonably new freezer, it should work, but, I just wanted to prove it did work, so I didn't write down all the numbers. I don't know, maybe I'll give it a try and come back.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
One thing I didn't think of is what, the ALC might think about those panels being out there, but hey, if we're in a snow Armageddon or a rolling blackout, who knows? You know, I just stick them out and worry about that later. Yes, sir.
Well, for that, if they got a rolling blackout and they send us a letter, I now have firewood.
You do what?
I now have something to start a fire with.
They don't go, they wouldn't see like they can't.
Oh, no.
The printers are down, so.
Okay.
I do have some experience.
Oh, that's funny.
The-
All right.
Good.
Come on.
As far as the refrigerator, has anybody, aside from hooking up the Generac or solar, wired anything actually into the panel? Because most of the stuff, my fridge, I've got to pull the thing completely out to get to the plug. And I want to get something actually hooked into the actual breaker in the circuit.
You know.
And that's kind of the reason why I was looking at either the Generac or solar, because if we're out and power goes out, I could lose everything in the fridge.
I guess about 10 years ago or so, or when we lived in Carrollton, we had solar panels put in. And unless you get, I forgot what the term is, for the break, to separate it from the grid, which costs extra, when the power goes out, your solar panels go out. You don't have any power unless you can disconnect your solar panels from the grid.
Yep.
So that's a gotcha that we didn't know about beforehand. And the other thing is that back in 2009 or whenever, there was only one company that you could get that would buy back power at that time. Most of them would say, like you said, yeah, thank you for the power. And, you know, and we put on just enough to do like what CoServe says, just to do the wintertime stuff to cut that back on our usage. Anyway, we only were there a couple years before we sold the house. And
So when you sold the house, had you already paid the panels off, or how did that
Yeah.
work? You have to pay them off, right?
well, I already did. I think we paid cash.
Okay.
I took some inheritance money and
Okay.
paid for the whole thing up front.
See, that's the other thing I'm thinking about. You know, if I put 151 panels up there and it's $73,000, that's a lot of money to pay off where I sold that house. You know, because the new owner would probably care, you know, about it. So I'd have to pay him off.
Yeah.
And so I don't know.
Yeah, ours was a lot less than that. I think it was like, I don't know, it seemed like it was 15,000 or something like that, what we spent on it.
Well, the guy never recommended less. He never said, hey, you know, here's what CoServe says. He never said, here's what the feds are doing. So I went, psh, you know, Rick?
Well, so a cheap workaround for refrigerators and stuff, Honda makes a 30 amp, 3,000 watt generator for $2,400. They're very quiet. I've had one. They use virtually no gas, and I mean, it's a great. They're great generators for something like that. I mean, they'll run for 3 or 4 days on 5 gallon gas. You can run a small air conditioner off them. A 13,000 BTU air conditioner will run off of those and refrigerator. So I mean, if you're looking for something quick and easy that you can take with you someplace, that's a good option. And they are 30 amps, so that'll start almost anything electrical that you have, except maybe a huge power saw or something.
What's the cost of something like that?
It's $23.99 on Amazon as of this moment.
Okay, fine.
Let me mention another approach that some people use up in Ohio that a lot of the farmers use. And that's that they got their house, they had a sub panel built in their house that would connect up the critical circuits, the refrigerators, the freezers, the furnace, and things of that nature. You know, the critical things that you have to keep going. And that could be isolated from the grid, and then you could use a portable generator and just plug right into that panel, and it would power just those critical circuits.
We actually had that done on our house, and that was relatively cheap.
Yeah, it's not a horrible
It was
job.
$1,200 to have it on that panel.
And so that, you know, maybe $1,000–1,500 to do that, and a $3,000 generator, gas generator, as long as you're very careful and keep that sucker outside. Make your interconnect to the generator come through the outside wall, so you can put that thing outside. Because the other problem with these, there was one guy out there that, put his Generac in underneath the bedroom window.
Oh.
Which is a little dumb. So, yeah, there's lots of little pitfalls you can get into in this, but, you know, you gotta decide, what do you need? Do you need to really cover the whole house for a long period of time? We've been here 8 years, and then rolling blackout during Snowmageddon was the only power fluctuation problems we've had out here. So, you know, what do you do?
I have a question about the solar, or comment and a question. What is anyone had experience with in the long term in North Texas, hail? Because you're guaranteed a new roof every 5 to 10 years here. I've lived here in this area for 35 years, and I've had multiple new roofs with hail. Go ahead.
I asked our State Farm agent that question, and he said remarkably, the solar panels in the Denton, North Texas area has been very little. He said, we've only replaced a few panels over an extended period of time. He said, I wouldn't worry about, you know, our hailstorms busting them, which really surprised me. So take that for what it's worth from a State Farm agent.
I actually asked the guy that too, that was doing the Zoom call. He said, not really. But the problem is, if you have roof damage elsewhere on the home, they gotta rip all those panels off. So that's more expense. So I go, no, this just doesn't make sense to me at all. Yes, sir.
I don't know if it's still the case, but before, I think this was about 6–7 years ago when I was talking to someone with solar for my previous home. They will replace your roof when they install your solar. They'll come out and say, okay, your roof has X life, we're gonna replace the roof and put your panel on top of that. Because they know your roof has a set life.
Yes.
So they will do that before you put the panel on, so they don't have to go through that process a few years later.
I'll give you another one. In the oil patch, we've been putting solar panels on remote locations, you know, for years. Question, how often do you wash your windows? You're gonna get up there and wash your solar panels, because it cuts down the efficiency. So just keep that one in mind. Yeah, get Fuller brush and spray them, and yeah, they'll get clean in theory. But yeah, it's another one of those little gotchas. But like you said, is the big question is, how much or what do you need to power, and for how long? And you're going, well, if I only need, like you said, a rolling blackout or something like that, a small generator, maybe that'll cover you, maybe you just say, I don't care. You know, because if it comes back on in a couple hours, your freezer's not gonna have a problem. So you've gotta weigh all of these things. If you come up and say, oh yeah, we're 50 miles outside of Denton, really rural, and we're at the end of a feed, and oh yeah, Snowmageddon, we were without power for 4 weeks. You got a whole different situation. And yeah, I'm not sure anybody's come up with a good answer to all those questions I haven't heard.
I haven't been able to find the ROI for it yet, on just solar. I mean, from the standpoint, forget the power outages and all those things, the actual return on the investment of, spending multi-thousands of dollars. How long would it take and reduce the energy bills to just electricity, we're not talking about natural gas.
I ran
To,
it
you know,
on our house
recover.
in Plano several years ago, and it wasn't to power the whole house, you know, et cetera, you know, the minimum, and it was a 35-year payout.
Wow.
And you're going, yeah. Add that one to the
And that's
equation.
if
I think I figured it was, ours was about a 20-year payout.
So,
And actually, it probably was longer than that because the efficiency of the panels deteriorates.
Yeah, that's it.
And so it would probably be, you know, the life of the panels, it's touch and go. One other thing,
Your $63,000 saving $150 a month is 35 years.
How old will I be?
yeah, the other thing we did, we bought a dual fuel generator at Sam's. It's noisy, but it runs off either propane or gasoline. So we've got it hooked up to propane, so I don't have to worry about the gasoline going bad, etc. And it puts out, I think it's maybe a 10,000. And testing it, I put my portable air conditioner in the garage, and it ran that and the fan and other things. And that was the thing that we were most concerned about, is that if it's 105 degrees out and the power goes out, I'm really getting awful old to be sweating it out. So we have an air conditioner big enough to keep our bedroom cool.
Nice. Very nice. Thank you.
Neighbors may not like the noise, but.
Yeah.
What is the lifespan of a solar panel today?
What's that one?
What is the lifespan of a solar panel?
I think it varies, but I really don't know what
I
it
mean,
is now.
it's-
It's like 20 years or 30 years, or depending on when they're, you know, what they are, et cetera. But their efficiency drops off.
See, and I wasn't aware of that as well, so it's like how fast does the efficiency drop off? I mean, you know, you get that to
It's
5
pretty-
ye's and 50% is low. That's
No,
lost. That went-
it's more like, I think about 10 years it drops off like that, I think. I don't know, I'm just kind of remembering a little bit, but you have to look into it.
You said that, you were saying, what, you just
25 years.
I was hearing that in California, they're starting to have issues that, solar panels wearing out, and they're all being taken to the dump, and it's causing issues with, you know, the
Recycle.
heavy metals and everything else that are in those solar panels, and they don't have a way of recycling it yet.
They do. There's a startup out of Nevada, I think he came out of Tesla. And so they've decided it's more cost efficient to extract the rare earth minerals from those than it is to dig them up. So they're starting to recycle. That's a brand new project.
Yeah, but I mean,
Yeah, and he's probably got a 20-year backlog of dead solar panels in California.
a friend of mine, IT, retired. They just put solar panels on their house, and Tesla, and did, you know, the Tesla Power Pack, or whatever the name of that thing is, which is a very slick system,
Right.
you know, no doubt about it. And he said, oh yeah, if you're only doing the freezer and maybe the AC, one pack, but if you want to power your whole house, you need 3 of those packs. And now you're back into how many things are you gonna run at the same time, so it's not an easy question, it's really
Well,
not.
the other thing I saw with the Generac stuff is that they now have their power packs. And I think you could get, just buy that. No solar panel, no generator, just the power pack, and have it plugged in. And it would provide you power during the brownouts, if that's what you're worried
Well,
about.
and it comes back to the same thing, how much and how long, and you're going brownouts? Oh, come on, hour, 2 hours, you know, that's really pretty cheap. But if you've gotta do day, the game changes, week, it really changes, you know, so what are you playing?
And unfortunately, the lifespan of the batteries are, I just looked it up and they say the power walls are 3 to 10 years. You gotta replace them.
Yeah, the sales rep talked me out of the batteries. Of course, price he quoted was out any batteries, you know, and I went, wow, unbelievable. Listen, we gotta cut this short. I'll try to keep it by 8 o'clock and we're over. Thanks everyone for coming. Thanks for your responses. And we look forward to seeing you next month, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Estimate,
Thank you for putting this together.
estimate on